you get named after your dad, but the truth is you should be named after your dad and your mom. But if you were, then it'd be like Petrie, Clark, Bullard, Oak, Caldwell, Marchuk, Hawk, Biffle, blah, 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 over and over, you know, thousands of names. So we have to shorten it somehow. So the fact that we have a naming system depends on the male side of the family. It's not something I necessarily agree with, but I don't have a better solution. So just that about names, whatever. Genealogy though is cool. So I'm going to show you this Ancestry.com family tree for me, which kind of small on this TV, but there I am in the middle. And by the time you get out 4 generations, we got about 16 different names for last names. I wish we could see that a little better up there, but I'm going to talk about this guy right here, Egbert Bullard, here in a second, because he's my great-great-grandfather who was in the Civil War. He was injured in Georgia, fought for the Union side, but I'm sure we have people on both sides of the war because the Civil War was a pretty crazy thing that ever happened. It should never happen again, by the way. So yeah, he fought on the Union side. He lived through an injury, and if it weren't for him living through that injury, none of us would be here. That's the crazy thing to think about. Like, one little thing happens differently in the past, and every single one of us wouldn't be here. So it's part of why I think genealogy is really cool. The first one, part 1, is the Petrie name. Not the Bullards, but the Petrie name. Going back to 1832, the Petrie name, which is spelled P-E-T-R-E, P-E-T-R-I-E, and P-E-T-R-I. P-E-T-R-I was actually the familiar spelling in Germany at the time. P-E-T-R-Y, I think those people probably are kind of dumb. But we're all mostly related, and it's been changed a number of times.
Who has that lie?
We came from Germany and came during the Napoleonic period. I know that Brooks took it upon himself to get into Napoleonic stuff at one point, and I think maybe deep down there's a thing that just genetically like pulled him towards that. But our three great grandfathers, Henry Petrie, actually fought for Joseph Bonaparte. He fought for Napoleon, but Joseph Bonaparte, he was directly under, and according to what I've been able to find up to this point, he was actually part of saving Joseph from getting killed in Paris as they were retreating after Napoleon had already been defeated. And, Joseph was the king of Spain at one point, and then moved over to North America, New Jersey, in like 1820 something. And then in 1832, when our family came over, which I'm just going to go to this picture real quick. This is just kind of where we all came from in general. A lot in Scotland and Ireland, southern England, and then of course a lot of Germany. I always thought Petrie was a French name, but it really isn't. It's more of a German name. And we've got a few relatives in France, but most of them were coming from
I thought it was a
Germanic
disputed area.
Well, it is.
Sometimes it was French, sometimes
Yeah, it's
it was
right here
German.
between Stuttgart and the border.
So like during World War II, we were French. We weren't German.
Yeah. Well,
Well, they
we
probably,
were out of there by then. We were over here.
there was probably people saying, maybe we ought not do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not want to be associated with the Germans during the later on period.
Fine. It's fine. I like it. I'm already almost to my end of my 10 minutes, but so then in 1832, Henry Petrie which was spelled Petri at the time. But his son, Christopher Petrie, who was like 8 years old on that ship, he ended up spelling his name Petre for whatever reason. But Henry Petrie died at sea, and so this is just kind of a picture of a funeral at sea because he was thrown overboard basically. But his 8-year-old son survived, and that's how we wound up here is because of Christopher Petrie.
Just so all the way through it.
There were 7 brothers. He had 6 other brothers, but we came from Christopher.
Why was he thrown overboard, did it say?
Do what?
Did you say why he was thrown over?
He died. He just died of natural
Oh, okay.
causes on the ship on the way over.
I thought you meant he was just thrown
I
overboard.
thought
No. He died on the way over is all.
Now, what'd he do?
Well, he fought for Napoleon and Joseph, but
Okay.
and honestly, if he'd lived, the pension that was promised him might have been maybe gathered, and there were a lot of things that were promised, but you know, Napoleon's getting exiled to Helena, and so a lot of things went south, essentially. That's part 1, and I've only got 1 minute left, so I don't know how I'm gonna get to part 5. Part 2, though, is the Civil War. I've always had a great interest in Civil War. I think most of you that know me know that. And my great-great-grandfather, Egbert Bullard, was in the Civil War. He got injured at Resaca, Georgia in 1864 during Sherman's march to the sea. If anybody knows anything about the Civil War. And recently I took a little trip over to Resaca and wound up right there. This road you see right here, that's I-75 going from Chattanooga to Atlanta. And this is the main battlefield. And I got out here driving on the battlefield, and where our great-great-grandfather Egbert was initially right here, and then they pulled out during the battle and came up here. And this is, I believe, where he was injured, which was on the other side of 75, which I couldn't get to. But there was something about the place that felt compelling and like I've been there before. Just kind of a weird thing. But, so we've got him that fought in the Civil War. We've got a great uncle, Henry Petrie, who's a doctor. Henry named after his grandfather, Henry. But he was actually a half-brother, who lives in Oregon now. Lived in Oregon back then after he finished in the Civil War, but he was a doctor. So I know he fought in the Civil War. Brenda Petrie Fritsch, who's still alive, and I talk to sometimes online from Indiana, which most of our family moved to Indiana, the Petrie family. Before the Civil War, they moved to Indiana, northern Indiana, around Angola is the place. A lot of our very distant relatives, you can find cemeteries in Angola, Indiana. But she tells me that there were others that fought in the Civil War too, and I don't know. So that's the little Civil War connection. The other connection, which I still find fun to talk about, is the Salem and South Lake witches. And those are like 9 generations back, but it's pretty solid connections all the way back. And one of the things I think is kind of cool is Lawrence and Cassandra Southlake of Salem ended up generating people like Clint Eastwood and Winston Churchill. There are a lot of families that can go back there. Of course, it's Salem time, so of course there's a lot. As time goes on, exponential multiplication, it's like we're like rabbits, right? But they were persecuted because they were Quakers, and the Puritans didn't like the Quakers. They were too weird for them, too religiously weird. And they persecuted them like witches almost. And a lot of people think that was the beginning of the Salem witch trials. They ended up dying on an island in New York. I don't know I had it listed there somewhere right there. Shelter Island in New York. They died right after being exiled. But the other thing I thought was kind of cool is that Lawrence Southwick was supposedly the first great glassblower in North America. And I think that's why Kenny has his glassblowing prodigy.
One glass.
No, it is funny that he was originally the first glassblower. Part 4. And I said I was going to do part 5, so I'm doing part 4. This is Marchuk and Mother. Everybody knows Marchuk, right? Raise your hand if you don't know Marchuk. You know who Marchuk is? You don't remember him because you weren't born yet. Well, this is your grandpa Bob Marchuk. And he wasn't related to us through DNA, but he created so much of this family. And I'm going to play this. I don't care. Whatever. Y'all listen.
When I was younger, it confused me. Now I think I get it my way. He don't like pictures, especially if he's in them. Time is not a mirror. It's some distorted view of the way you thought you was and what you thought they thought of you. And all that trash that I tossed out, it weren't by no means good, but just because someone tells you, don't really mean you should. My friends would try and cheer me up, the best they knew to do. There's no rescuing a diver with 2 cinder blocks for shoes that can't be right. What year is it this year tonight?
So, obviously the line I like out of that is, he don't like pictures, especially if he's in them. And you couldn't hardly find a picture. So, this is the part where I start crying and I'm like, Bob and Mom were quite a pair. He became as much part of my genealogy as my biological father was. Vernon Nicholas Marchuk was always called Bob because of his little sister. Mother was always called Pat. It's hard to write or think anything about them without getting overly sentimental. So, that. And then part 5, I decided to end with my aunt was the Queen of Scotland.
No lie.
My aunt was the Queen of Scotland. So you see this guy, Archibald Gilchrist? He's my 4th great grandfather. And he came from Crosby, Leeds, Ontario, Canada, but was born in Glasgow, Lancashire, Scotland. And I do believe that somehow he's married or related to Mary, Queen of Scots. So, whatever lies I told Clay Holman back in the day, I think there's some truth to them. And all I was doing was trying to impress some rich kid and like show that I had something kind of cool too in my family. But you know, that's the whole point of this presentation, is I think we got a lot of cool things in this family.
That's right.
And I wanted to play this about Grandma real quick, because this is my favorite quote from this video.
That's nothing to monger about yet. But anyway, I wore the elbows out. I rolled up the elbows. I was a smart, elegant kid. That didn't faze me a bit that I had a holy elbow.
What?
She was a smart aleck kid.
What kind of elbow?
Holes in her elbows, and she just rolled them up and kept
She only
on
had one
going.
dress.
Oh.
But everything, that was like the 3rd or 4th time in that whole video that she talked about how smart aleck she was. She's just like, I was so smart aleck.
I never was smart aleck.
And I'm gonna play a little bit of Mom because I just should.
Clark, Petrie, Marchuk, Vesper. And I have good things to say about each one of my husbands.
Okay, before you get there, when were you born? Before you get to your husbands, when were you born?
Yeah.
When were you born? What was your birthday?
My birthday was November 23rd, 1935. I was born to Lloyd and Pauline Clark.
And what town?
between Altamont and Winston, Missouri. I had a very good childhood.
And I don't know if I want to play this one or not. And then I had these photos that I was showing earlier. That's it. That's my presentation for today.
Good job, man.
Why did you decide not to play the last one? You just.
Because it may be long.
Oh, okay.
You can watch it.
I
41
saw
seconds,
it.
huh?
It's on
It's on YouTube.
YouTube too.
Okay.
Yeah, and all this, if you search for Patricia, Clark, Petrie, Vesper, you'll get it.
Marchek.
Just have searching up Marchek. Yeah, put Marchek in there. Put all the names in, you'll get it.
Okay.
Oh, this is about Kathy. And they built a shelf to put Kathy on because they couldn't afford another room for her.
She always was the shit.
Put her on a shelf.
She was like the queen of England.
They put me in the drawer.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I got. I'm ready for
They threw me off the
All right.
side of the stairs.
Good job. Okay.